Okay, and I think I'm recording properly here. Gotta let somebody else in. Hold on. All right. So it is recording. That's great. Welcome, everyone. And hopefully y'all can see. Y'all can see the slide. I hope. Yay. Okay. So what is this all about? Well, surprise, it's going to be a little bit less about the movie as it is about certain eternal concepts that are behind the movie. We're going to discuss these concepts as they're what our world, our real world, not just the Matrix movie, but our real world is built on. They're found in the movie. They're found in nature. They're found in more so amongst human beings. They're especially found, these concepts, in the creative works of human beings, more so than some people than others. And it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be some like religious person. It can be anyone who just is, tapped into this, whatever you want to call it. So this is what we have found. We, being my wife and I, with The Matrix. We saw the movie back some 20-something years ago, the first movie. And then we went to the theater when the second and third movies came out in 2003. And that is when we immediately embarked upon putting together a little bit of a teaching course and started writing articles and putting those on another website and meeting with groups of people around here locally and talking about the Matrix. So the concepts we're talking about fall under what I call authentic Kabbalah. I say authentic because two reasons. Over the centuries, a lot of people took ideas from the Bible, from Kabbalah, from Judaism, and melded them with other crazy things. And some of that stuff people now refer to as Kabbalah with a Q or a K or a C or who knows. But the point is that it has real origins and they're tied directly to the Hebrew scriptures. That's the instrument through which they are best revealed. They are revealed, as I said, through nature and through all kinds of things. And you'll see these aspects in all kinds of religious paths, philosophical teachings, etc. But they are best revealed and meant to be revealed through their original connection to the scriptures. Hold on a second here. So tonight, well, before I go on to the next slide, I was about to go on to the next slide. I would just briefly mention a couple of people had asked me what's with this weird image. And this is actually going to come up later, not next month, but down the road when we talk about certain concepts or certain characters. And one of the concepts and characters that's going to present itself more so in the fourth movie, if everything goes according to plan, is this idea of a figure of a serpent type figure who's already been in the previous movies, and a young female character who may just be more grown up in this movie without giving too much away. And that theme of a serpent and a female, if you're familiar, is found in certain writings as well. So we have a lot to look forward to with this fourth movie coming out, and we will be discussing these things in the months ahead as we go through this course of study. Let's see here. Let's see if this works. Okay, good. So if you haven't done so yet, I strongly encourage you right now in the next 23 seconds to grab a pen and pad. That way you can jot down all of your comments or questions or anything you might want to bring up. We will be taking a couple different breaks here during the next hour, hour and a half. I do have to be done and out of here at a reasonable hour because I have to head out somewhere tonight. So anyhow, if you haven't yet, go ahead and grab a pencil pad and pad or pen or crayon or whatever you like to use. Always a good idea, unless you're a person that like types on your phone while you watch something, that's fine too. Yeah, this is being recorded, so y'all better behave. Okay. So one of the things we're going to be talking a little bit about tonight. I've got 3 quotes on this page, and they're from different sources, and these quotes are all very related. The first one in the top left is from Abad that says the world was created by God who is infinite. That's a major important point for the Matrix as well, as we'll show. It follows then that every single creation, in every single creation, there has to be evidence of who created it. So this is giving us the idea, and it must contain, sorry, I didn't finish it, resemblance to its creator. This is giving us an idea that there's aspects to creation that are connected to a singular source, to coin a phrase. And so there's a structure. Down below the quote from Daniel, Daniel says that, shut up these words, seal them to the book, even to the time of the end, many shall run to and fro, knowledge will be increased. So this concept of going back and forth, running to and fro, this is entirely a spiritual dialogue here, or a spiritual discussion going on in Daniel. This concept of going to and fro is associated with the idea of ascending spiritually into the spiritual realms to get information, to make that connection. The word for knowledge there, da'at, means to make a connection. This is what, in the context what Daniel is talking about. This is alluded to in other places in the Tanakh and in the Bible as well, in terms of like prophecy and things of this nature, supposedly coming back, like in the old days, at the end of days, and all of this. So again, though, we're talking about going to and fro here. Again, you're implying there's, again, a framework or a structure that we're dealing with in order to go to and fro. And then the final quote on the bottom right is from the Matrix movie, from the first movie. This is when Morpheus was training Neo in the Kung Fu and other martial arts in the dojo. The structure, a dojo is actually a place of spiritual learning, by the way, but it's also where martial arts are taught. And Morpheus tells Neo, after they've been sparring a bit, he says, "Oh, you're good, adaptation, improvisation, but your weakness is not your technique." And the weakness, although he doesn't say it as this is your weakness, but he does kind of talk about it after that, is that Neo, the main character, simply does not understand the reality that he's dealing with. He doesn't understand the matrix world, or as Morpheus calls it, the rules of the system within that. So again, there's a structure, and Neo is an order to things, and Neo doesn't understand anything about that. So he's going along doing his kung fu karate and all of this stuff and doing okay, but he's not going anywhere fast, because although that's great, it has nothing to do with what he's there for and his reality that he lives, that he's existing in, that he has to understand. And that's what he does over the course of the next 3 movies. So all 3 quotes here on the page have something to do with the fact that there's a structure or a framework or an order to things. Ironically, it just hit me as I was kind of reading over the notes earlier that we're heading in 2 weeks into Passover, and where you have what's called a Seder, and a Seder means order. It means an order or structure to something. So it's kind of funny. It just kind of hit me tonight as I was looking at the notes going, oh, the timing's pretty good. Timing's pretty good in terms of what we're doing here. What we're going to do over the next 2 months, or 2 lessons, because we do 1 a month. We have other groups, by the way, on Saturday nights. There's always something going on. Tonight, finally, they said, is the first Matrix room, because I had to cancel last month. So what we're going to do tonight and then next month is get the fundamentals down, because without this, it's like Neo, like we just said. You need to understand the framework first, the structure first, then you can understand everything else that's going on in the movies, and you can understand all of these deeper spiritual concepts, these Kabbalistic Torah concepts that are throughout these movies in an amazing way. It's truly there's a rabbi, his name is Rabbi Gideon Holland. He's a big Matrix fan, and he calls these movies a Trojan horse, in that they are full of Torah concepts being, sprung onto the world without anyone even realizing it. Okay, so what we're going to look at, as I said, there's 2 over the next 2 months, is 2 what I call templates, and these 2 templates are critical to not only understanding the movie. I mean, you can have fun with the movie regardless, but in terms of understanding the structure of and framework of everything, literally everything that is in the Bible, for starters, but also just in our own reality around us. So get the two templates down and you'll understand where everything else fits and flows from. One of these templates is called a template of 4. If you notice, there's a little plus sign up there because it's 4, and then I'll show you what I mean in a minute by it's 4, and then there's actually a hidden 5th realm. But within our existence, there's 4 parts to that. And then the other one's a template of 10, dealing with 10 emanations, or called Sephirot. We're going to get to that next month. Tonight, we're focusing on the template of 4. So as I said, excuse me. As Morpheus said to Neo, there's a structure with rules, and Neo's not getting anywhere without a map. You need a map. We need a map. And this is what we're talking about tonight, is to get the fundamentals of the map down. So anything that you study relating to spiritual matters will relate to this, okay? By the way, welcome to everybody who came in recently, if I didn't say so. All right, so we're going to take a look at something regarding this template of 4. And there's many aspects to it. We're going to look at a bunch tonight. We're going to start with probably what you could call the key one. There's something in the Torah, in the scriptures, called the 4-letter name of God. It's made up of 4 Hebrew letters. It's down there in the bottom left-hand corner as it is written. It goes from right to left. That small little letter that starts called the Yud. Then there's a Hey, a Vav, and another Hey. And that is the 4-letter name of God. And in most Jewish circles, it's not pronounced, mainly because no one knows exactly how it's pronounced in terms of trying to figure it out. I say that because there's probably some people somewhere in a cave in Jerusalem or nearby that have been carrying down the secret. But for now, we're not even going down that route. That is the 4-letter name, Yod He Vav He, or also known as the 4-letter name of God. And it's associated with everything, like I said, with that 4-letter, that 4 template of 4 that I just mentioned. That is, as we'll show in a minute, is throughout the Torah, throughout the whole Bible, and throughout the Matrix movies. And the 4-letter name of God, when you place it vertically, you put the letters vertically as the larger diagram is showing you, creates an interesting image. It's an image of a human being, if you use your imagination. You got the head at the top, and then you've got the upper torso with the arms, and then you have the spine, the vertebrae going down to the hips and legs. It's kind of interesting how it makes that, and some interesting verses that tie to this. So one of the first things we're going to address, Kabbalah teaches that there, and we'll show examples of this, that there's what we call creation, and there's also something we call existence. And creation is pretty much what you think, or maybe what you think, and it's everything that we see around us and what we can tell with our senses, what we see with a microscope or telescope, the stars, the planets, it's everything creation. But then we also know from spiritual tradition that there's a spiritual realm, and the spiritual realm is basically made up of an angelic world that's amongst us, around us, however you want to describe it. But above that, there's also a higher level spiritual world, the heavenly Shemaim, which is where you have things like the heavenly temple and those kind of ideas of these forces and powers, as they're called. And that's all creation. But before that, there's something called existence. Creation lies within existence, but there's a 4th level above that called existence, which is how we deal or understand with God, and we'll get more to that later. We can only understand God. God's outside of creation, but we can only understand God in terms of what our minds can grasp that's still within existence. And it's more than a minor point, as we'll discuss. But these are the 4 levels, or they're actually called 4 worlds of existence. And if you want to, you can start at the bottom, the last letter Hey at the bottom down there, which is the world of Asiya, which is making. Above that, which is the world of Yetzirah, formation, Beria, which means creation. So everything from there down is creation. And then above that, where you see the letter Yud, there's something called Atsilut, which means nearness, which means that that's a level of existence beyond creation. And that, because it's closest to God, if you're heading up, so to speak. And it's not really up, but you know, if you're heading closer to God, that's why it's called Atsilut, nearness. Also, interesting thing is there's something beyond existence, something that you can call pre-existence, which is outside our realm of understanding, outside of existence. And this is a deeper aspect of God that we really can't relate to. You can call it the transcendent aspect of God, if you will, whereas we only deal with the more immanent aspect of God. Just one God, no duality or trinities or nothing like that here. It's simply how we can and cannot relate to God. And the way this is expressed with the four-letter name of God is at one point you put the pen down or the quill down and you touch the paper, and then you made the yud. And you know, where did that dot go, right? the dot that you started with and then made the yud, well, it's hidden in the yud. It's beyond, it's outside of our sight, but it is there. So that's why there was that, plus with the 4 and the plus at the beginning slide there when I was teasing and said there's more than just 4. There is a 5th level of pre-existence outside of existence, and we're going to discuss that, and we're going to discuss it how it relates to the Matrix movies too. And I'll pause after another slide or two just to see if anyone has said this is being recorded, and we do have the chat, the discussion room. We have the group where we can post questions 24 hours a day and other things. So, all right, let's see if I can get this thing to. Okay, so one of the clearest examples, very clear example we have in the books of the Torah, in Genesis, of these levels of existence. One of the representations is in a dream that Jacob had, Jacob, the grandson of Abraham, the son of Isaac, okay? So Jacob has this dream, we've all probably read it in Genesis 28, where in the dream, he's on the earth, he's on the ground, okay? And he sees a ladder with angels going up and down. That's important because angels in Hebrew, malachim, means messengers. They're going back and forth, up and down. So it's touching the ground where he is. So these are angels going up and down to where? They're going up and down to the heavens, okay? We say heaven, it's heavens in Hebrew, it's plural, which is the heavenly realm. And then he says above that, he sees God above that. So there's your 4 worlds of existence, okay? You have the bottommost world called Asiya, the world of making, the Yetzirah, the angelic world with the ladder, touching the heavens, which relates to Beria, the higher, which is your throne room of God and all of that. And then above all that, above creation, but still in existence, because Jacob can fathom it. As I said, we can fathom of God is in that level that is Atsilut, above the heavens is Hashem, okay? The angels are actually called angels of Elohim, and Hashem above that. So those words are sometimes a little bit interchangeable, but they actually have a distinction as well. So there's one of your very most pronounced examples of the four worlds of existence in Jacob's dream. And one of the things about this is when we're talking about these 4 worlds, there's 2 ways to look at it. I can simply put bottom up and top down. There we go. When we're talking about these 4 worlds from a top-down perspective, it's from God's side of things, and mostly in terms of how God created all of the worlds, the spiritual worlds and in our world, etc. So we're looking at it more from a creation standpoint from Genesis. And of course, by the time you get down here, God is very hidden. So this concept of going through these worlds that God created is one of God's presence, if you will, is light being reduced and reduced and reduced finally down to here. And there's a reason for that, because we can't exist in the full light of God. We would be annihilated. There's no way for us to exist. So the highest heavenlies can exist at that level. Then there's a further reduction of God's presence or God's light. And you have the angelic realm. They can deal with that. But then finally, there's a further reduction down here so that we can exist in our physical existence and not be overwhelmed by God, or by the light of God. And this process of this reduction, each stage or constriction is called tzimtzum. You'll hear tzimtzum a lot in this whole Matrix study over the next year, because it's a major theme in the Matrix as well. And then when we look at it from the bottom up, going the other direction, in terms of us finding our way back to God or trying to connect to God, this is also a form of Tzimtzum, because now what we have to do is restrict everything that's superfluous, restrict all of our physical world, physical reality and materialism and all of these things that get in the way. We need to get those things out of the way to make room for the truth from God, for that reality to come in. So every spiritual, here's a concept to hang on to, every spiritual advancement that anyone makes is always preceded by some type of tzimtzum, some type of restriction of this physical world of concealment that we live in. Down here, there's a concept called hester panim, hiding of the face of God, and we have to advance upward to get closer to understanding God, and that's done by restriction all the time. Okay. Sometimes tzimtzum, it can be something that Hashem does for us, and sometimes it's something we can self-impose. So you can go privately somewhere where it's quiet, or out in the woods, or in your home, somewhere quiet, and meditate and block out everything and meditate and focus on God, that kind of thing. So that is you doing a self-imposed type of attempt, at least at tzimtzum, to block things out so you can get God completely in your focus. That's another aspect of fasting, by the way. So you can do that on your own. Conversely, God sometimes intervenes for our benefit and causes things to happen in our life that cause us to focus more on him. Oftentimes, this is not usually getting $1 million in the mail. This is usually when things happen in our life that we would call trials and tribulations. And that's oftentimes when we start praying and doing everything else. And this is God, causing us to focus on him and we're not thinking about baseball or anything at that moment when something bad's happening. It's us again. It's a imposement of tzimtzum on us from God, and not one that we necessarily chose to do ourselves. So tzimtzum is a requirement to advance. Sometimes, in summary, sometimes it's us that does it. If we're smart and we know how, we have ways to do this. And there's different ways. Meditation is one of the best, and Torah study. And then sometimes God imposes it on us. And ironically now, I don't, in these classes, I stay very focused on Hasidic Torah, but there's an interesting verse for people who do read the New Testament in Romans chapter 5, right at the beginning, verses 3-5. Romans 5, 3-5 is all about tzimtzum. I don't have it in front of me, but I know it starts, rejoice in tribulation. Sounds crazy, right? Oh yeah, sure, that sounds smart, right? Yeah, then read what it says and then follow the process that goes on that's explained in those verses. It's very interesting. It's a very Hasidic, very rabbinic teaching in that section there. So moving on. So as we saw earlier, when you take those four letters of the four-letter name of God, the Yod He Vav He, and you put them vertically, and it makes a picture of a human being. Okay, that's interesting, because here's an interesting verse that ties this together with those worlds of existence. Because here in Isaiah, it says, everyone that is called by my name, okay, which is the concept of being near to God, or the world of Atsilut, I have created him. That's the word, same word, bara, for Berea, for my glory. I have formed him. Formation is Yetzirah, and I have made him Asiya. So that's your four worlds of existence right here in this verse in terms of human beings that are called by God, that are near to God, which correlates to both the four worlds of existence as you see them here, and also the idea of this being a human being made in the image of God. So when you think of the verse in Genesis that says we're made in the image of God, this has everything to do with that four-letter name of God and these worlds of existence. It is said that Adam spanned all of these worlds. His feet were in our world, his body was in the Garden of Eden, and his head was above where he could talk to God. It's an interesting spiritual concept. Not that he was physically that tall, but that's how it's discussed. So, but anyhow, this is an interesting verse in that it ties everything together pretty nicely in Isaiah. Again, another place where the four worlds are mentioned if you know what to look for, if you know what the framework is. Now here's another interesting one. This one's a little more complex, so I'll explain it. Over on the right, first of all, there is our diagram of the Yod, the He, the Vav, and the He superimposed over the image of a human being. Okay. And as we know, we're told in a number of places that there's a correlation between the human body and the temple of God. That's mentioned in rabbinic writings, it's mentioned in Torah, it's mentioned in the New Testament, it's mentioned all over the place, that there's a direct connection between how we're formed, our bodies, and the temple of God, which is an outline of that is on the left side. And what you have here in terms of these four worlds of existence, the four-letter name of God, the human body, and the temple, all connected on this diagram. The world of Asiya at the bottom is connected to this world we live in now, the world of physicality or the world of concealment. In the movie, it's the Matrix world itself, as we'll get to later. And this connects to the outer court of the temple area. And then you have the inner, or the upper court, inner court, upper court, depends how it's, what you're reading, where the outside altar is. And by the way, in Kabbalistic writings, the outer altar, that big altar on the outside, was actually for the angels. What's going on with all of that? With that altar has angels in the angelic realm, which correlates to the world of Yetzirah and the ladder in Jacob's dream. Go back to that. And then you go into correlates to Beria, the upper torso, the first letter He, and then you finally go into the Holy of Holies, which is near to God, Atsilut meaning near to God, nearest to God, which is the letter Yod. So there's I didn't come up with any of these ideas. All of the stuff I'm showing you, other than the matrix stuff, obviously, is found in traditional Kabbalistic texts or in the Torah directly, one or both. Okay, so there's a connection here between the temple and the body and the worlds of existence, as we saw in Jacob's ladder. All right, let's see. I think I got. I've got some more here. It's important to see that this framework exists throughout the whole Bible, throughout the whole Tanakh, and outside of that too. All right, so don't mind the character on the right with the red pill. I thought that was pretty thematic. That's actually me holding the red pill. So you have this another dimension to it here with the four worlds. Deuteronomy 6, 4 and 5. So you have the Shema, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, and then you follow that with the beginning of what's called the Ve'ahavta, and it's you will love, and it's the four-letter name of God in there. You will love Yod He Vav He, your God, your Elohim. And that's an interesting thing too, when you see the two names together like that. There's an interesting concept I'll come back to in a minute. But then it says, how do you do this? This is important. This is what you're supposed to do. So this is this level of love or connection, which is, again, that's having to do with that higher level of Atsilut, being near to God. So how do you do this? You do it with your heart, your mind, and your strength. They're in a little bit of a different order here, but these three things correlate to those last three correlate to those three levels of creation. So your strength is your physical strength, and your wealth and your time, the things down here in this world, the world of Asiya. Okay, that's the strength. Heart, emotion is actually the middle realm above that, directly above that, although it's first in the verse. And heart has to do with emotion. So you have your physicality, your emotion, and your mind, your intellect is the above that, which correlates to the world of Beria. So you have the worlds of existence appear yet again here. So this reflects back to everything we just talked about, the temple, the ladder, and everything else. Again, you keep seeing this pattern of these four things if you know what to look for, if you know the framework, okay? The shirt I have on in the diagram, by the way, there's a whole story behind how I got that, but that's for another night. Oh, you can almost see down on the bottom left by my hand, you see the word four, and it actually says four worlds of shalom, four worlds of peace on it, which is the same idea. And you have the bottom one, which is the house, which is the physical world. Then over to the left is your heart, your emotion. Over to the right is a book, the intellect. And above that, at the very top, you see a sun and a moon, which is very symbolic of the unification, the bride and the groom concept, actually. The sun being the groom and the bride being the moon, which is a major theme running through the Matrix movies, as we will discuss in the months ahead. The Trinity Neo relationship, but also bigger than that, and also what's coming up in the fourth movie. So a lot here on these slides. I think I might want to pause just for a second here, just to see if there's any questions specific to some of these examples or anything else related so far to these worlds of existence. Okay, so again, if you got in a little late, we're talking about a template of 4. This template of 4 appears throughout the entire Bible, all over the place. It's foundational. Everything you study and learn about relates back to this template of 4, which in turn has to do with the 4-letter name of God, these 4 worlds of existence, as they're called: the physical world we're in, the angelic world, then the upper spiritual world of the temple, and then that's all of the spiritual temple above in the heavenlies. And above those 3 worlds is the 4th world above that, which is outside of creation, but in existence, where there's a concept of God that we can relate to. If you notice that, yes to Diana. We'll have an intermission in a bit, a slightly longer one, so everyone can go get a cookie or use the bathroom, whatever they need to do. If you notice in the book of Genesis, the very, very first verse of the Bible talks about Elohim created the heavens and the earth, okay? And the concept of Elohim here is the concept of God within existence that we can relate to, okay? It's establishing that right away. Although the name Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh is used throughout the scriptures some 6,000 times, because that's how God governs the earth. They both relate to existence, but Elohim is the concept of God as creator. And the Torah, as we know, starts with the letter Bet, which is the 2nd letter of the alphabet. And there's a lot written about that, saying that there's something that comes before Genesis 1:1. And that's that hidden 5th level we talked about of pre-existence, where it's just pure singularity. There's God and only God, and we cannot describe that at all. Because as soon as you describe it, you're talking about something in existence, and this is outside of that. It's a deep concept beyond what we're talking about tonight. Elisheva actually will probably be talking about that some more. She gets into that, some of that stuff, my wife Elisheva, in her chat room. So, or we may talk about that some other time. Okay. We're not talking, we're not really talking about the sun and the moon in terms of the physical sun and the moon here. This is spiritual concepts where the sun goes back to Joseph's dream too, where the sun is related to the concept of the bridegroom, the spiritual bridegroom, and the bride is related to the concept of the spirit of us. The moon is related to the concept of the spiritual sun. So none of these concepts have anything to do directly with physical things, although those terms and those ideas can relate or reflect in some way. Okay, let's see here. Let me see what I missed. I'm trying to scroll down without missing too much stuff. Nope, that doesn't work with my scroll bar. There we go. Okay. Bottom levels of Asiya connect to the animal nature, sexual. Well, Asiya connects to everything in our physical existence. Everything physical, including our personal emotions and things like that too, down at this level, okay? Is down here in our reality that a lot of people think is all there is to reality. That's the whole idea of it being a world of concealment. That's the world of Asiya. The Hay is essentially a Dalit and Yud. That's beyond the scope of this discussion right now, the letters and all of that. So we can get to that some other time. Do you think that apex of the Yod, the 5th world, will correspond to the Ark of the Covenant? Yeah, when you start getting to the Ark, where the presence of God is like mystically connecting within that, then yes, that's exactly it. I didn't get to it on that slide because we're talking more focusing on the 4 worlds of existence and just alluding to the 5th world now and then. But yeah, the Ark and where God actually meets existence is another diagram. I have another different diagram that actually says that, exactly that. So So 5 points for Ben. Okay. All right. We're not at our intermission break yet, but we'll got a few more things to talk about before we have an intermission and a raffle. We're gonna give something away. The caveat on giving something away is we have to pay, we're paying for stuff, me and some other people that do these groups pay for these things out of our own pocket. So postage is an issue. So if you're in the United States, fine. If you're not, you're gonna have to help with the postage, or we'll figure out some other wonderful, actually I have another idea. So that's fine. So guaranteed winner no matter where you live. We'll work something out if you live in, Kathmandu or something. All right. So next screen. Where are we? So you have all of these ideas, and as you see, they connect with heart, your emotional self, your intellectual self, and your physical self. By the way, those relate to the 3 ways you connect to God. Strength connects to doing mitzvot, doing acts of kindness, keeping the positive commandments. Okay. Heart relates to prayer and meditation. We get very deep like that. And mind connects to Torah study. So, and those in turn relate to aspects of, hold on, I don't have my notes in front of me for this. I'm going by memory. Depression is directly related to going out and doing things for other people. So that's related to the idea of strength and doing mitzvot. And then there's anger. Anger has to do with prayer, resolve anger issues. That's a level of emotion. And then temptation is the other one, and that's related to getting deep into Torah study. So if you're anyone dealing with issues of depression or anger or temptation, 3 of the big ones that get us all the time, they directly correlate to that verse and these things that are mentioned in it. I'll post some of this too in the group. So, and this is being recorded, but we can elaborate a lot more in the group with text and links and videos and other things too. Okay. So kind of winging half of this tonight. All right. So just to show you how this stuff doesn't just exist in the Bible for Bible studies, but comes out into the real world, as that verse says. This is what you're supposed to do. Never mind, where you're at. This is how you function in life. A lot of these things are finding their way into our world, not necessarily just through yeshivas and Jewish circles, but others as well. And in fact, that's part of what we're doing with this whole Matrix for Humans project. Is we're taking the movie, we're showing these Kabbalistic and Torah ideas in the movie, and now we're starting a whole new phase of the project on the website where we're going to start taking these ideas and showing people how they exist in other secular type teachings. And we're going to take it even further to combine all of that, if you will, into things that people can apply in their life and negotiate this crazy world we live in, first of all, but also to improve on things, help their families, etc. So there's a lot more to the project we're doing than just the website stuff, which is a lot because we've got 70, 80 articles and blog posts so far already, and a lot more coming, but there's a whole other aspect to that. So one of those here that you can see, the little diagram on the left that says spirit, mind, heart, and body, which is what we just discussed, that's actually out of a book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey, which, if you're not familiar with that, I don't know what to tell you, because it's the #1 all-time self-assessment and self-improvement book that businesses and government agencies and everybody that I can think of has either read or been told to read or offered or what have you. So it's quite a work. I highly recommend it. And that's taken right out of his book, which is interesting. Spiritual, he associates with clarifying values, and then mental with planning, emotional with synergy, and then the physical. So you see these, he calls it 4 dimensions of renewal. You can see the direct correlation to what we were just talking about here. Okay. Yeah, that's a great book. And we actually, part of the Matrix for Humans site, we started a new section called the M Files, kind of like the X Files TV show, only not as spooky. So the M Files is now we're taking some of these ideas up into interesting directions, and we have an article on there on the 7 habits and showing how they connect to some of the things in Torah and Kabbalah. Okay, and the coffee mug is, yes, the coffee mug is a coffee mug that we actually offer. All right, I won't spend time on coffee mugs. So here's another thing for you, and then we'll take a break here, I think. So we've all had ideas. We've all had ideas pop in our head. So here's an example I'm going to use. The guy on the left, let's call him Ben. He looks like a Ben to me. I don't know. We'll call him Ben, not our Ben here, but we'll call him Ben. So Ben's sitting there, and one day he gazes up and he has this idea pop in his head. I'm going to build me a house. I'm going to build me my own house, right? Some men and women have had this idea pop in their head. And of course, a lot of people have, and it just came and went because, they didn't go to the next step. And then Ben took some time to think about that singular idea of building a house. And he started thinking, well, I think I'll have a 2-story house, 4 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. I think I'll do the roof like this, and we'll have landscaping like this and a driveway. And he starts breaking down the ideas of a house into, something a little bit more detailed. Okay. So that idea of taking a core idea and detail coming out of it. And then he goes further. A lot of people go that far, and they also drop it there. But then he brings it down. He brings it down to the next level, that level of the Vav, the 6, and happened to be 6 people in this photo, which I hadn't thought of before. But he brings it down to that next level, which is the Vav, which is the hook, which connects, which is the ladder in Jacob's dream, which connects the spiritual world above down to the physical world below. That's the purpose of that world in the Vav. And so it comes down through the Vav where it's developed, its forms. That's called the world of formation. So what the idea you had before is now formed. And then finally, Ben reaches the culmination, builds this beautiful castle down on the bottom right. And best I could find, folks. And the point here being, of course, that this is the world of making, where you actually make the thing, okay? And we're going to, after the break, we're actually going to show a scene at the beginning of the second Matrix video, Matrix Reloaded, where this process, if you will, is shown right before the movie. It gets into the movie. It's in the introduction where they hit it in there, which is fascinating. So the idea here behind the whole concept of an idea is you have the idea comes into your head. I'm going to build a house. And then there's an expansion of the initial concept, the details. Now, if you remember that 4-letter name of God, right? The Yud is a small little comma-like letter. That's your core idea. Then the He is that big puffy letter that has 2 sides and a top to it, right? That's expansion of it. Then you have the Vav bringing it down. I should have put the 4-letter name on the slide. And then you have another expansion where it's actually built. And that's how ideas function with human beings. This is how they come about. They follow this process. All ideas do. And this follows, again, our 4 worlds of existence, where there's a singular point, and then it expands. This also follows the whole idea in science of the Big Bang, because you have the idea that there was this singular point, same thing, and then the Big Bang, that's number 2, and then it all cooled and was formed, that's number 3, and then it finally became our worlds. So from a scientific standpoint, it follows the exact same process, which is interesting. Okay. The question, of course, for anyone is, whatever idea has ever popped in your head, where was that idea before it popped in your head? You can't say it didn't exist. It wasn't in existence, but that doesn't mean it wasn't somewhere. And you do have this phenomena sometimes, which is called multiple discovery, where you have people like atomic bomb is one terrible example, but others too, with scientific discoveries that are people think of like at the same time around the world, people that weren't even corresponding. They just like come up with the same kind of idea simultaneously. So you got to say, well, how's that happen? So the idea here, of course, is there is this concept of pre-existence that we mentioned earlier, before existence, that's outside of our realm, outside of existence, but everything emanates back from there at some point, if you will, for lack of a better term. Not to dwell on that. So I think that's maybe time here to, one more slide, just kind of as a tease what we're going to get into in the second part here. Yeah, okay. We've been talking about these this template of 4/5, okay, and this template also finds itself in what's called the dimensions or levels of the soul. So again, the Kabbalah through the sages teach that human souls have within them 5 dimensions, okay? Looking at the very bottom of our chart here, okay, in red, you have the basic soul, if you will, which is called a nefesh, okay? Every human being is going around with a fully functional nefesh. If you're breathing and alive and you're feeding your face, you've got a nefesh. And the nefesh is basically about that, breathing, being alive, and feeding your face. It's very much concerned with your personal needs. It's very much concerned with, you know, food and shelter and the other things, you know, friendship and you know, procreating and everything else. The basic nefesh is the level of that most of the world operates at most of the time. Okay, and that's our world we live in. Just in and of itself, it's not spiritual. It's just a bunch of stuff. Just like the Matrix world, it seems like reality, but there's much more. And that is when you start getting up to the level of what's called Ruach. The second level of the soul is called Ruach. Okay. So Ruach is also a term used in other areas, but keep that in mind. The same similar words I used in different contexts. In this context, we're talking about the second level of the soul. And this is a level where sometimes people will start to ponder that there's got to be more to life than just, you know, going to baseball games, feeding your face and dying. You know, there's got to be something else out there. And people start pondering spiritual matters at this level. And some people ponder and ponder and ponder. Some think about stuff and give up and go back. Others, you know, have setbacks but keep going forward. It's that level of going back and forth and struggle. If you think again that this level corresponds to Jacob's dream and the ladder, where the angels are literally going up and down, that's exactly the idea. This is that where we go back and forth and try to figure things out spiritually. So that spark, the spark for any of this starting is in the nefesh. Everyone has that spark somewhere in the nefesh, but you know, until that gets activated, then you're just still stuck at that level of nefesh. And most of the world stays stuck at that almost all the time. So there are some people, though, that will start contemplating at least some philosophy or religion or something that there's more to life. And that's that level of Ruach where you're trying to get somewhere. And then you finally get to this, and it corresponds to the angels, as I said. And then you get to this level of neshama, and neshama is where you make a real spiritual connection. Heavenly is the heavenly world. Okay, watch your mics, folks, so you're not live. Okay. Then the neshama is that third level where you make like I said, make a spiritual connection. And that's basically the three levels that most of us can hope to attain to in this life. The next fourth and fifth levels are generally associated with things that really don't occur in this life. Very super rare righteous people might make some level of chaya, or we can maybe tap into that a little bit, okay? Because you're talking corresponding here to something outside of creation. And actually that's something where like meditation or with other people and all that you can, like I said, kind of tap into that a little bit. But generally speaking, those upper levels are things that the soul really only attain, because they're so close to God, that the soul only really attains these after death. That's how it's expressed, okay? And this is a path, as you can see. It's a structure, it's a path, so it corresponds to everything we've been talking about, including Daniel's verse of traveling to and fro to the extent that we can. It's also, and here's one of the big revelations, drum roll, this is also the path of Neo in the movies, as we're going to show in a minute. And these levels correspond to the movies. So as you know, we've done 3 movies with the Matrix so far, and that's the first 3 from the bottom that we've covered. And we're going to show that in great detail after the break. I think there's actually one more slide. So before you think, okay, that was the good news. Here's the other news, as they say. Okay, so all of these are always accessible to some degree, theoretically, to everyone, but we're all starting at the level of nefesh. But I'm afraid it's worse than that, because the concept here is that you have to deal with everything to do with your nefesh before you move to Ruach, and everything to Ruach before you move to neshama. You got to do the work before you move ahead. You know, it's like same as being in the gym, right? You got to do the work. And these 5 levels of the soul, drumroll, are the 5 levels of the soul all reflect in each of the levels of the soul. So let me say that another way. So within the nefesh, you have aspects of the nefesh, of the ruach, the neshama, the chaya, the yechida, all within nefesh. and then the same in Ruach, and the same in the Neshama. So this little diagram I put here kind of shows what we're talking about here. So the teaching here, the idea here is that you're going through these different levels of the soul within each, let's call it major dimension, just to distinguish between the two. So you have like the major dimensions of the soul, nefesh, ruach, neshama going up, and then each one has little levels within it. So that's the idea of doing the work and what you need to learn and accomplish. And we'll show you, there's no better example than in the Matrix, which we're going to show after the break. So if everybody was all excited that, yeah, I'm at the neshama, well, if you are, good for you, but you're probably like me and everyone else at the neshama of the nefesh over here on the far left. Not to deflate anyone, but this, we all have that's where you make this real true spiritual connection with God, right there. And like I said, not necessarily that you have to attain these other levels of Chaya and Yechida, because they're very difficult in this life, but there's aspects to them that you can attain, sort of, kind of. And we'll discuss those later too. And then moving on to the Ruach, and there you go again. You're always starting at a fresh new level. All right. So again, that's not to make anyone nervous or feel bad, but this is how it's described in the sage, according to sages in Kabbalah. Okay. And I missed a question. Well, I'm going to go back here in a second. Yeah, actually, this is where we're going to pause because and we'll come back to the slide actually, because yes, this is my pause slide. How do you like that for a pause slide? Let me go back and just see what okay. Grizzly Adams. That was the idea of Grizzly Adams, actually. Ben. I had a guy I used to work with that looked like that. His name was Ben, so I used that. So, okay, yeah. So, yeah, as we'll talk about, yeah, we'll mention it today. We're also going to mention a whole lot, much more in the future when we get to some other aspects of Neo in future discussions. This whole course, by the way, I call it a course. This whole course, once a month, is built around the information that is currently in the Matrix for Humans website, where, like I said, there's a knowledge base there with over 50 articles. That's kind of the, and we're going to take several of those at a time, depending on what we're talking about. So tonight we're taking the first 2 articles. Next month we're going to take the 3rd article. But then after that, when we get to like the characters, we're going to group them in bunches and so on, because they all have very specific aspects to talk about. So yeah, like Bitul, as was mentioned, self-abnegation, self-denial is that highest level, which, you know, we can attain to some degree. It's not easy, because it's not like just, well, today I did and tomorrow I won't. It's like a true state where everything is only God, nothing else matters. Your family, your life, everything is secondary to God. And that sounds like, oh yeah, sure, yeah, that can be very difficult. Okay. But anyhow, that's the path. I'm going to give Diana a few minutes here, unless she's done at collecting some names, because we're actually going to have a little raffle in a second here. Couple of brief announcements till she tells me that she's ready with her awesome technologically brilliant raffle wheel. Because the one we used last month, or last week, broke, I think. So a couple of just brief announcements. As I mentioned, this class is, Lord willing, once a month. We're still working out some dates. We've run into a thing called Passover, and Passover is on the front and back end of Passover are on Saturday nights. Happens every 7 years. And so here we are on our group doing Saturday night rooms, and we don't want to do it on the first and last nights of Passover. So Diana's next week, we're normal. Saturday night is the Devakut meditation group, same time, same channel. But the week after that, we're going to go early. We're going to go on Thursday night with the women's group, ladies only, Neshot Bina, Women of Understanding. You know, any ladies that need a really good, wonderful, kosher, awesome teaching group. This is not your Wednesday night church Bible study. It gets into some pretty heavy things, but all very practical too. And each of these groups have common denominators. They're all grounded in Hasidic Judaism and the same concepts that we're even talking about tonight. This group here is actually probably the easiest. because we're talking about basic concepts. Hopefully I'm explaining them okay. And then the others are more application for meditation, for things that we're dealing with in the world with the women's group, and then Elisheva's group. I never know what she's going to talk about, so she's on another level. So that's every Saturday night, and when we have a 5th Saturday in a month, we'll come up with a very interesting and exciting random topic that we'll announce ahead of time. You can connect if you belong to any one of the groups. They should all at somewhere just ask. They're all interconnected through a 5th hidden group. It's kind of like the whole 5th hidden world we've been talking about. The 5th hidden group is called Torah Light group. Torah Light connects all 4 of these other groups, mine and the other 3 we just talked about. Okay, so that's the big announcement. Our purpose is to, just as I said earlier, give people information to help them with life, especially in this crazy world. Everybody is so concerned about what's in the news and all this stuff all the time and this and that. And it's like, these things are all just going to happen. They're going to happen. They're all part of Hashem's plan. They're all part of God's plan. If you understand the framework, like we're talking about tonight, if you understand the framework, the path, the timeline, which is another important concept. You understand all of that, and then you get the big picture, then you won't even be worried about, I don't even watch the news, okay? I mean, you don't even worry about it because you'll know you understand what's going on and what has to go on. So that's the idea. All right, so Diana is using a less colorful random picker to choose. We're gonna give away tonight. Here's what we're giving away, folks. Hold your breath, hold on to your seats. We're going to be giving away a couple of Matrix mugs, not all of these. This is just a representation, and there's others. So what I'll do is I'll get with the winners and let you pick the one you want, because we got like 60 of them to pick from, all designed by either myself or Elisheva, or we're using what do you call it, consignment design or something like that. Anyhow, there are lots and lots and lots of cups. So there's, like I said, we got them all on the website. And we're going to give away a couple tonight for free, just for attending. So, Diana, what do you need from us? Do you need a drum roll, or do you need how is this going to work? Do you need to have the control of the screen, I would assume, or is this?
Yeah, I'm sharing my screen. If you can.
You're going to share your screen?
I'm trying to. If not, then.
Oh, I need to stop sharing probably. So let me stop. So I am no longer sharing screen. You see your name.
Can you see my screen yet?
No, just your name at the moment. Oh, there we go. Something happened. Yeah,
all right.
This way we know you won't pick your friends and relatives.
Exactly. Okay, so this is like.
Oh my God, this looks pretty wild.
Everybody's here. So I'm just gonna roll through it. I think it's alphabetical, so
yeah.
I think everybody. No, it's not alphabetical, but it's close enough to alphabetical. Everybody that I saw in the list is on inside here, and
this is a random picker.
Random picker, and it says choose a name. We're going to choose, and our lucky winner is Soteria. See how unexciting that was?
Yeah, it was nowhere near as exciting as the spinning.
Nowhere near as exciting. No spin, no colors, but it did not crack. That's the main thing.
I'm reaching for my depression medication.
I know. It is quite depressing. I was like, this is so unexciting. They probably want me to pay for excitement, but
it's okay. Well, no, we thank you for doing this. All right, we're giving one more. We are going to give away 2. So Terry, get hold of me for the mug of your choice. And are
we doing one more right now?
I'll do one more. I'll have 2 winners tonight. I'm just in this like really generous mood here. All right.
Okay, so we'll hit choose.
Soteria can't. I'm gonna say one thing. Soteria can't win both. No.
Right. Okay, so I'm hitting choose again. Get ready for all the unexcitement.
I can't win either.
And Terry.
Terry B. Terry B. Terry B. Oh, Terry B. Yay. So Soteria and Terry B. Get a hold of me on Facebook. Just PM me, tag me, or whatever. If I've talked to you both, so you know how to get hold of me. And we will get a mug of your choice. I will get a mug of your choice. I've saved all my little mug boxes and special high-tech packing equipment and from other mugs. And I've got several here. If I don't have the one you want, we'll just get it off the website. But awesome. Very good. Thank you, Diana. If anyone wants to run out, we're going to take another minute or so here on the break. You need to use the restroom, or you need to pour a drink, or you need to grab those cookies out of the oven, send one to me. And we'll start in about a minute or so. So we'll give everybody time just to do what they need to do here. You've got our raffle winners out of the way. As I said, next Saturday night, 9 o'clock start, 8:30. We open the room for music. A little different music than Madasyav next week. But the meditation group with Luke and Diana, both actually. And that gets into some interesting things, interesting teachings about it, but also interesting actual meditative practices that are kosher. They are, we don't get into any weird stuff that is not grounded in Torah and practiced for centuries by people that are on the right path. So we don't get into any like weird stuff. So it's safe for the kids. Yeah. You just broke a mug this morning. See, it was meant to be. That's been happening a lot to me lately too. Weird stuff's happened, like right, the timing has just been totally weird. Things popping up and stuff, You broke the EOM cup. Okay, this has been a really weird week for like nice things like that missing and breaking. It's strange. Last week or two. So, well, then you want another EOM cup? I'll send you another. That's Ein Od Milvado for those wondering what EOM means, code language. You want another EOM cup? I'll get that to you. Just remind me with a message, PM, and I'll work on getting that ready tomorrow. And I think I can mail it out Monday, hopefully. Get my lazy butt out the door. All right, so we are going to go. Diana, I'm going to grab the screen back from you. I think I can. Share screen. Do I get to override you? Ooh, wow, such power.
I'm already unsharing, so it's all you.
I don't want to click on the wrong button and like end the meeting here. So I've done dumber things in the last month. I have done some really bad things in the last month or so. I'm in a long-term post-COVID recovery and still with a lot of brain fog, more than usual. All right, share screen. Here it is. Not the right one. Should have coffee mugs on it. Yay! It's the right one. Okay. So yeah, I've been recording this whole intermission too, so that's going to be exciting for people who weren't here. Okay, so we are going to continue on. And now that we've discussed some of the background, some of these concepts, and they're going to come up again and again, and this is recorded, and this is on the Matrix for Humans site, and it will be in the group. So you have multiple ways to review this information because it's very important. Question, you said prayer, reading, meditation. What do you recommend when dealing with fear coming up with continuing the path? An Uzi. No, I'm just kidding. That is not a good answer. Prayer, reading. Oh, yeah. Okay. So I said with fear. Well, fear, to me, fear falls under that category of emotion, anger, fear, any of those things is more of an emotional thing as opposed to temptation or depression, which are more, well, one's more clinical and one's more whatever you want to call it. So really that would, and again, this isn't say only do one thing and not the others. Generally speaking, emotional things, really deep prayer and meditation. Prayer and meditation are different things. They're connected, but they're different. So come to the meditation group next week. There you go. There's a good start. But learning meditation. Prayer is good. Prayer is always good. There's prayer where you use prayers that there's prayers like from a prayer book, a siddur, or there's the prayers that are just spontaneous, where you just go out to the woods and you yell at God and tell him what the heck you doing in my life, and you have a conversation like that. And there's also a meditation where you really have to quiet the mind and really go block things out, tzimtzum, and go inward. And that's where you really make some profound advancements, is with meditation. But doing prayer and meditation and good works and study, always, you should always have those three main things going. They're called the three legs of a stool, that you sit on. If you have one leg that's shorter than the others, you're going to wobble. So you need all three. Not all of us do all three equally well or comfortably. So you might focus more on what you're good at or what you're comfortable with, but don't ignore the other two or other one. Okay, so that's all I can tell you on that. I don't want to give too specific an answer, because I don't give anyone specific answers unless it's like my wife or my closest friend that's here every week, because I don't know people close and well enough to give specific answers, because that's like trying to interpret someone else's dreams. It's like, no, don't even go there. So, okay. All right. Now we are going, prayer meditation, and come to the room next week. So bada boom, ready. I love this shot. I needed a shot for this. I'm like, this is the shot. Enter the matrix, because this is kind of the opposite of what's going on here, actually, because Neo is kind of leaving the matrix at this point in the movie, but we're going to enter the matrix, so to speak, if you will. Okay, so I need to take a sip here. So something, where are we? I have what do you call it? A mouse that's not connected by a wire. What do you call that? And if it's on a piece of paper, it doesn't like that. Okay, so remember this diagram. I'm just going back to it as a quick refresher. Okay, and the idea here is we're going to look at a scene from the Matrix here that shows this, which is a pretty cool idea in and of itself. All right, that there is something outside of existence that we can't relate to, which is God and God's pure essence, in pure singularity. There's no descriptive words for that. His ways are not our ways kind of applies to that. Okay, which is that hidden point. But we can grasp the idea that there's a God, right, that's beyond creation, and that is the world of Atsilut. Okay, and that's very singular. The world of Atsilut is everything that's going to come in. It's like the Big Bang. It's before the bang. It's the point before the bang. Everything's in there. Everything that's going to happen in the world, everything that's going to be created, everything that's going to ever happen is in that single point of Atsilut. It's an echad, okay, as opposed to a yechud before that. All right, and then you have the first expansion, which is like the Big Bang, Berea, like it says as your letter Hey. This is the diagram I should have had on the other page. The Vav is where it descends and forms. Keep that idea in mind. And then you have the final expansion where it becomes a real thing, where it's made in the physical realm. This is the process of creation. This is actually shown at the beginning of the second Matrix movie, in the beginning of Matrix Reloaded, the second movie, okay? And what we're going to look at here, I have to back it up a few seconds here. I just remembered I had it at like 40 seconds. So it says here, what we're looking at is this matrix code, which is the building blocks of everything that comes out of nowhere. We don't know where it's coming from, which is your idea that there's something beyond, okay? And then you will see at the 50-second mark, but I'm not going to start it at the beginning. I'm going to start it around 30 seconds, so save some time. You'll see the single dot of light come into existence. Just a single dot, and that's that idea of the world of Atsilut, okay, that everything's in the single dot before it explodes. And by the way, when we talk about Neo's adventures later, you'll see he actually enters into that single dot of light to get to that level, which is fascinating. That's in the future. Then that second dot of light, as you'll see, kind of bursts and explodes, and it's a mess of stuff. That's that first expansion. Then you'll see things starting to take formation, starting to form like a blueprint. Like we remember the thing we had a while ago with Ben and his idea, and then the third level down was people looking at a blueprint. You'll see that things start to take form like that, but they're not real yet. They're not in the world of making yet. And then finally at the end, you'll see the object or an object form in question, that the object in question form in the actual world of making, or if you will, in the actual matrix world. Now, I don't think I can click on this link. Will this work? This might work. Now, I got it queued up. Hold on a second. I'm going to go to the video and stop the share, and I'll come back to this. Okay, give me 10 seconds. I think. Oops. Okay, so it won't let me minimize here. Oh, there it is. My pop-up bar wasn't coming up. Now it is. All right. Matrix reloaded. I'm going to go back to the, okay, right about here, and back to you guys. I'm finding my way through here, guys. Okay, share screen. All right, here we go. Okay, now remember, you're going to see code come out of nowhere, which is that hidden world we can't see. You're going to see it come into that singular dot, and then an expansion, then it's formed, and then it comes down. They got this embedded or hidden in the beginning before the movie starts. It's right after like the opening credits that says, well, actually it'll say Matrix Reloaded on the screen at one point. So here we go. If I have it up here. Okay, here we go. Oh, I want to get the full screen effect on here, don't I? Except now I can't see my little start button. Okay, here comes your dot coming up there. And then the expansion. Then it's going to start to form into things in a second here. And remember, the Bob brings everything down. The world of physical creation in our world. And voila, the time clock. So I don't know if you could hear me talking over that. I figured I'd talk because there was no dialogue. But if you go back, and we'll put this link on the site, you go back and on the group, you'll be able to review it. They actually built this into the beginning of the movie. There's so many things intentionally put into these movies, and I personally think a lot of things are unintentional that it just took on a life of its own. But it's really pretty amazing to see that process at the beginning, because the second movie is where the majority of these concepts are introduced. Some are introduced in the first movie, and there's a few key ones in the third. But the second movie I've always loved a lot because of that, because it has so much built into it. So now I got to find my way back to my little thing here. Oh, there it is. Okay, and pull you guys back up. Oh, I think we lost a couple of people. That's okay. Hopefully they'll. All right. So as interesting as that was, it's going to get more fun. So we talked about these four worlds, and you just saw an example of how they were created, how they came into creation, into the Matrix movie, I should say, how they were brought all the way down to the time clock, which is in the Matrix world, which corresponds to our world that we live in right now. It's a world of concealment. The path back for Neo, and I mentioned this earlier, the path back for Neo also involves, like our path back, of restricting any thoughts he has about what he thinks reality is, because he's wrong. Just like people that look around our world and thinks this is all there is to it, don't see that there's spirituality beyond this. So the idea is, of course, that we're using the same idea to go back to God in that direction, symptom of restriction, only a different type of symptom. And Neo progresses in his path through these worlds of existence, where he's in the matrix world, and he thinks, well, that's what it is for now, represented below down there, where he's in his neo body and going to see the oracle, and that's that spoon scene. We'll talk about the spoon one day. And then he interacts. He learns a lot. He interacts with Trinity there, actually, which is a whole interesting concept of what Trinity represents in the world. And then he does meet Morpheus, who introduces him that there's more outside the matrix world. The next world beyond that, as we'll see, is what's called the program world. And we'll talk about that in a minute. And the figure there I used for that, which correlates to the world of Yetzirah, is the angelic world. The programs are the angelic world of the matrix story. That's Ramachandra, one of my favorites. And then the level of the oracle is the level of Berea. She is still touching with the human beings within creation, but she's also that connection that goes beyond, outside of creation. She's kind of like that point there. And then outside of creation, the actual person who calls himself the creator in the story is this guy called the architect, who's at that level of Atsilut. So this is a concept of creator that Neo and others can deal with, know a little bit about, have some ideas about. Okay, that whole idea of the immanent concept of God or creator. And then, of course, there's something outside of all this nobody knows really anything about. They just kind of know it's there, but they know nothing about it, which is called the source in the movie, which is that hidden fifth world outside of the world of all the programs and existence and creation. Because remember, the creator, the architect, is also a program. He's the creator of creation, or of everything connected to the matrix and program worlds. But he himself is a creation. So he's a creation of something that's outside of the picture or the source. Just like the idea that Elohim in the Bible, that God, concepts we can relate to, Elohim and all of that is a creation, if you will, of the unknowable God that's beyond, it's outside of that. We have a link somewhere to an excellent 3-minute video by Professor Daniel Matt. It's actually called In the Beginning, God Created God, which sounds bizarre till you listen to what he has to say, but it's the same idea. All right, so this is the matrix ascension, if you will, from the matrix world, the program world, the oracle world, and then the architect world. And we'll show that in much more detail down the road here. So here's when we put it together. I love charts. I'm a chart person. I'm a visual person. So we have on the left, the humans in the matrix down at the bottom corresponds to our Earth. And above, I'm just going to take the first 2 columns for now. Then there's the programs, which correspond to the angelic world, of that connection between the human world and beyond. And then I put higher programs, which is really the oracle. Because as she said, there's no one like her, she says. As Neo asks, other programs like you? She goes, not like me. And then the world of the creator, which is the immanent aspect of God we can deal with and understand and know some things about, which we are presented in the movie, the architect. And then the mysterious, beyond that, there's this machine world that's outside of everything, which represents the transcendent aspect of God in the movie, which is called the source in the movie, which, again, is a pretty good name for the unknowable, transcendent God, the source of sources, he's actually called, or the cause of causes, he's actually called at that level. Neo's journey, if you will, he does encounter people that really kind of clue him in as to something. And the first person he meets, and we'll talk about this in great detail when we discuss Trinity, probably in May. But Trinity represents something from outside the matrix world, so something that has some dimension of spirituality to it, with it, which is, in this sense, she's representing the divine presence, or the Shekhinah, in our world, in the matrix world. That's the first connection anyone makes, right? Seek ye first the kingdom, Malkut, that's the Shekhinah, they all correlate. And that's Trinity's first, Neo's first encounter is with Trinity. Again, feminine. And these worlds have feminine and masculine correspondences. The worlds of Asiya and the world of Berea are associated, the 2-letter Hays, the first Hay and the second Hay, have a feminine connotation, and the Vav and the Yud have masculine connotation. We'll talk more about that later too. But for now, Neo's path goes from Trinity, then he meets Morpheus, and then he meets the Oracle, then he meets the Architect, and finally at the end of the third movie, he meets Source. Well, he kind of meets the Source. He meets the outer aspects of the Source. All right, so this is the worlds how they correspond directly to the Matrix movie. So this is an important framework, two frameworks, if you will, to connect together. All right. So again, like Jacob's ladder is the earth. Jacob's in the Matrix. The angels. The ladder is the level of the regular programs. Then the heavenlies is the level of the oracle. Then God above, which is the God he can understand and relate to, is the architect. But there's something even beyond Jacob's dream that we're not talking about in the Bible, because the Torah does not really talk about. The Torah is talking about things in existence we can relate to. That's why it starts with the letter Beit and Elohim, because it really doesn't talk or even hint much at the fact that there's something beyond all of that. It is something that comes down from tradition primarily. There's a few hints, like my ways are not your ways, that kind of thing, but that can be interpreted different ways. But still, the Torah is mostly focused with our lives and existence, and not before. All right, so this is a nice slide that you'll want to refer to now and then. So we talked about the 5 dimensions of the soul earlier. So I'm going to show now how they apply to the Matrix world, and particularly Neo. All the characters in it, of course, have something to do with all of these concepts, but the story does center around the One, as he's called, Neo. He is a very messianic figure, obviously. Much has been written about that idea, mostly in Christian context. Little bit of Jewish stuff, and then there's also like Buddhist stuff and New Age stuff and philosophical things. There's so many things written for the last 20 years about the Matrix, but we're trying to get to what's, that 5th level we talked about. We're trying to get to what's before these ideas even entered into the mind of the writers and directors, that these concepts all pre-exist. And as I said, we're just touching on a few tonight. There's hundreds, so we've got a lot of groups ahead of us, a lot of Zoom rooms ahead of us. So just to refresh, and then we're going to show some great detail regarding what's going on in the movie with Neo, because Neo's journey is a journey of a person going through these levels of the soul. Okay. And just to review again, you have the Nefesh, which does have the spark within, where a person kind of has a potential to wake up to there's more to life than just this. So we see. And then Ruach is when they start delving into, well, what else is there? Let me think, let me read, let me talk to people and study and meditate and things. And they're trying to find connections. Some people find bad connections. Some people, like I said, they fall back and forth, they fall apart. Some move forward. And then finally, when you do make a connection, a spiritual connection, it's at the level of neshama. And then beyond that, there's actually the concept of chaya, which is one where, because everything now is just personal, it's just you and your journey to God. When you get to this level of chaya, you're going outside of just you and creation. You're getting to this level where you can connect, you're connected or can connect both to other souls. Okay, this is the level of Klal Yisrael, with the community of Israel, so to speak, where you can actually, so like when you have, even what we're doing tonight, in a sense, a minor sense, even what we're doing tonight, connecting at a different level, spiritual level, all of us here, we're kind of operating or touching on that level of chaya, where we're or if we have a group that meets and does meditation together, that same idea. When you're connecting with other souls on something very spiritual, this is what you're talking about here. And then the 5th level, bitul, self-nullification or abnegation, is where you reach a point through all of these things that you do spiritually, where the only thing that really matters morning, noon, and night is Hashem, is God. And everything else is below that. It all matters, but it's all important, but everything, it's a priority. Number one, always, every minute of your day, what you're thinking of, pray without ceasing, or King David said, I am prayer. It's like you're in that constant state where it's all about God in every situation. That's a level of bitul, which sometimes can mean great sacrifice, and even to the point where someone may have to lay down their life for someone else, because it doesn't matter. If that's just the thing you do, you just do it. So you'll see people May not even be religious people that'll lay down their lives and for others like that. And that's a level of betul. And we'll see that 3 times in the Matrix movies, by the way, too, once in each movie. So now it's going to get fun, okay? Because as I said, this is a journey of Neo in his path, okay? And as I mentioned, the first 3 movies, Matrix, Matrix Reloaded, and Matrix Revolutions, all have to do with Neo's journey of the soul. The first movie has to do with his nefesh level. The second movie has to do with his ruach level of his soul. And the third movie, the neshama. And the fourth movie, and there may be a fifth, but I don't know if they're going to go to the fifth because, as we know, the fifth is a whole other level we can't really comprehend. So they may do a fourth and a fifth and split it down the middle like they did with the second and third. I don't know. But the fourth level is going to relate to the fourth level of soul, which makes absolute perfect sense. So what we're going to show here in a second, this is just a slide showing you how the progression of the movies in the bright yellow. So as I said, the first level, Nefesh, Matrix, and so on, okay? So Neo, Chaya is, like I said, it's an experience of, well, I don't know what you mean by oneness, but it is an experience where you do connect beyond just yourself to, like I said, to and with others. That's one aspect of it. Chaya relates to, Chaya, life. It's the source of life within creation. And it's going to come up a lot, actually. All these levels and things will come up in the months ahead when we talk about the different characters and different scenarios and scenes in the movies. That's when we'll get into a lot of other fun stuff too. So thank you, Luke, for jumping in on that. Okay, so here's where it gets weird. Okay, hold on to your seats. We're going to first look at the first Matrix movie. Now, let me just go back real quick to, where was I? Here, this screen. Remember now, Nefesh, spark within, waking up. Ruach, challenges, lack of clarity. Neshama, connect, finally making the connection. I wish I could have this slide next to what I'm about to show you. I may have to redo those because this pattern of 5 happens in all 3 movies, okay? And it's really specific. So this is where it starts to get fun. First movie, let's go to the bottom of the screen, okay? As I said, Neo is at the level of Nefesh. He is born in the Matrix. He's living in the Matrix as Thomas Anderson. The movie starts with Neo asleep. He's asleep in front of his computer. And as we will see shortly, Neo is asleep at the beginning of all 3 movies. Very symbolic, okay? Because he's at a level that he's starting anew, okay? So he's born in the Matrix, Thomas Anderson, but there's got to be some spark in him because something was there that activated the next level where he pursues his thoughts. And as Morpheus says to him, you're here because, there's a splinter in your mind. There's something that was bothering you that made you get to this level. Now you're at this level of Ruach, which is a level of choice here. When you're at that level of Ruach, you can fall back and say, forget it. This stuff's dumb. I'm going to take the blue pill and go back to my 8-to-5 job and go bowling with my buddies and not worry about spiritual things. Or you can continue moving forward. So that Ruach level is the pill level. It's always a level where you have to make choice to go further, stay there a while, or fall back. So this is the Ruach of his Nefesh at this level, which, as we know, he takes the red pill, symbolic of advancement. Red is the color of the left side of Gevurah, of Tzimtzum we talked about, restriction. Those things all apply to the left side of constriction, which I'll explain what left and right and all that means, actually next month. That's Sephirot and the tree of life with the Sephirot on it. And then what happens after he meets Morpheus and starts doing some learning and training at that level? He now becomes ready to meet the Oracle for the first time. He meets her in all 3 movies, always at the level of the neshama within that level of the soul he's at. So he's at the level of Nefesh. He's specifically at the level of neshama of Nefesh. This is where he makes his spiritual connection to the Oracle. What does that mean? Well, that's a whole other thing. The Oracle always tells everyone what they need to hear. That's not always pleasant. Sometimes it's confusing because she tells you exactly what you need to hear, which sometimes means the message is a little cryptic and you need to figure it out because you do need to do the work, as we mentioned, because if you just hand people stuff, they don't benefit in a deep way from it. So she sets Neo on a course that later on he starts to figure out what she meant. But again, always at that level of neshama in each of the movies. Then from there, he comes to see himself in his role more, and how, well, it's not just about him. Oh, great, I'm the one, yay for me. No, he has a job where he's connected to all these other people, to humanity. He has a job fighting for them, okay, and doing whatever it takes. That's a level of chaya, of a collective consciousness with humanity, with his other humans. That's the chaya of nefesh again. And then finally, he gets to a point where he has to choose, make a choice to actually potentially lay down his life for others. And he goes and he turns around and he fights Smith, and he gets into a situation where he could die. And he's not doing this for any personal gain. He's doing this because he simply understands, this is what I'm here to do. It's not about me. I have a role. So this is the level of bitul, or self-abnegation, self-denial, whatever you want to call that. And that's a level of yechida. Here it's the yechida of nefesh. And this is how the movie ends, in a sense. There's other details we'll get into later, but it ends with him attaining this level of bitul. So now he's done. He has accomplished what he needed to do at the level of nefesh, going through these 5 very precise stages in the movie, as I've outlined. And so now you get to the next movie, which is, hi Asher, my kitty's next to me. The next is the second movie, Matrix Reloaded. So now we're dealing at the level of Ruach. Remember, we're going through each major level and all 5 steps within it. Again, if you start at the beginning of the movie, Neo's asleep. He's having a weird dream. Okay, so he's sleeping again. Beginning of every movie, he's sleeping. All right, and he's experiencing dreams and confusion at that level of Ruach. His conversation there with Trinity, and then later with the Oracle. He's going through this. Dreams are always at that level, just beyond physicality in our dreams. They touch in the spiritual realm. And so Neo's getting these weird dreams that he can't put together. He sees Trinity, looks like she might die. He can't really tell, in the dreams something. But so you got to be careful with dreams, because they are operating at this weird level. But the point here is that this, again, is the level of Ruach within Ruach. So this level of confusion and struggle, right? And then what happens after this? He meets the Oracle. Again, the Oracle is always met at the level of the neshama of something. Here it's the neshama of the Ruach. He meets her a second time. She drops a nice one here. She says, you turned out all right, which is meaning you got your nefesh fixed correctly. Glad you're at this level now. And now she starts talking to him about his choice, okay, which relates back to the Ruach that he had made, the level of his choice that he made, which is the level of taking that pill, okay. And then again, after he gets his marching orders, so to speak, from the aspect of the Oracle, now we're talking about going to the next level of Chaya of Ruach. Here again, the Chaya level has to do with his connection to all other humans, to the beyond just himself. Okay, and here again, this is what happens. He meets with the architect, and they get in this whole conversation about his level, his connection to other humans. It's a very deep conversation. Actually working on a new article that's going to be just the whole conversation and breaking it down. So again, when you get to that level past the Oracle, which is the neshama, you get to the level of Chaya, where it's all about connecting to others. And here it happens again in the Matrix Reloaded movie. And then finally, you get to that 5th level of Bitul, or the level of Yechida of the soul. Here it's the Yechida of the Ruach in the soul. Okay. And again, he experiences a situation where they were running from the Sentinels, if you recall, these machines, and they're trying to get away. And he turns around and puts his life on the line and puts his hand up, and actually is able to use some, let's just say some force. I hate to use the word force, some force to bring the Sentinels down. But then he drops down and appears to be dead. In fact, later the Oracle says, you should have been dead. So he again puts himself out there, gives up his own, willing to give up his own life, okay, for others, which is total bitul on his part, okay. And then he later awakens in this mysterious train station place. Yeah, Kitty's hungry. Yeah, I told him 2 more slides. I told him he doesn't know what I mean. Okay. And then next we go to the third movie. Again, now the third movie is going to be the level of Neshama, Matrix Revolutions. Yet again, I know I sound repetitious, but Neo's asleep. Here he awakens in this mysterious train station. I have a whole article on what that is. That gets pretty wild. And he's unsure again of where he's at. Okay, so he has to try to figure this out. So he has this whole discussion with Ramachandra. Again, a discussion is profoundly interesting. And Ramachandra is that nice man he meets in the train station with his wife and his daughter Sati, his wife Kamala. And he starts talking to him about connection, which is what Ruach is. It's the ladder. It's that whole realm of connecting. And then he has his first dream. Here comes another weird dream. His first dream vision of these 3 power lines. And again, it's very foggy. So he's getting this mixed information. By the way, that world of Yetzirah, the angelic world, is actually called the mixed world. It's also called the world of mixture of good and evil, because and that's where psychics and other such people to do those kind of things tap into all the things the Torah forbids, because people are tapping into that lower mixed spiritual realm called Yetzirah, which is a mixture of things good and evil. It's not clarity that you only get at the upper levels where Hashem says to get clarity from. So Ramachandra connection, dreams and visions, again at the level of Ruach. Now it's the Ruach within the Neshama. And here we go, third level again, third level of now the Neshama of the Neshama. Third level is where he always meets the Oracle. He meets the Oracle again at this level. That's another really deep conversation about where she actually starts talking, believe it or not, about Teshuvah, about return. That's the sign in her apartment. I have an article already online about that if you want to go look. It's fascinating. So after meeting the Oracle and getting yet again another, I have Asher on my lap. He said he's going to be quiet. All right. So again, after meeting with the Oracle for a third time, he gets another set of instructions on, where he's at, what he has to do, and goes from there. And here he has some time where he has to actually go meditate. And just got a text from, is it really 10:49? Oh my God, I got to wrap this up quick. I actually have to go pick up my wife at the airport, believe it or not. So, okay, so I have to wrap this up. I was supposed to end by 10:30. I'm too long-winded. So he, where was I? Oh yeah, so he comes to understand again, here we go. His mission is to save everyone and what he needs to do. That's the level of Chaya. And then finally he goes and he's willing to give up his life when he encounters the source. 1 second. So that's your 3 movies, your 3 first levels of the soul. As I said, the 4th level of the soul usually requires that you have to die. Well, guess what? Neo dies in the 3rd movie. So he met that. 1 second. He met that requirement. I'm texting while I talk to you. He met that requirement in the 3rd movie. He has gone beyond, but he's still, still around. The teaching in Kabbalah is that the soul, the righteous can do more in death than in life because he's not restricted by the body, that the soul continues to do things to benefit others after a righteous person dies. So, yes, only in the movie it's a Kamala, and it's Kamala apparently for the vice president. Yes. Somebody gave me a 6-minute warning 30 minutes ago. I must have missed that. Dang. I do have to cut it short here, folks. We are at the end. I will post this whole thing. The 2 people at One Mugs contact me. I'll post more information with this recording in the group. I hate to run. I usually go till 3 o'clock in the morning, as you know. Slide number 27. What's that? Oh, upcoming rooms. We mentioned this. That's right. Next Saturday is on course, and then the one after is going to be Thursday. So those are the ones coming up. Slide before this is the website, by the way. It's matrix4humans.com, and click on knowledge base, that green thing there with all the articles in it. All right. So this is recorded. I'll post it. I got to run. I'm already running late by 20 minutes. Oh boy. Okay. She's at the airport. No more flights. She's just at the airport in Boston, like, but she apparently has a whole bunch of Torah books on her that she picked up. So she's got plenty to read. So I'm on my way out the door after I feed the kitty. I just sent her a text saying that Diana kept me here. It's all her fault. And no, I was kidding. And she knows I'm leaving. So it's about an hour drive to get there. So, all right. Thank you all for being here. Again, hate to cut it so abruptly. Post questions in the group, please, or watch the video when I play this again, and post questions. But let's get some good discussion going on around that, because that's how we all learn. Okay. All right. Got to run. Love you all. Shalom, shalom. If I don't talk to you, have a good Passover. If you have any questions or anything about Passover, please, Ella Shaver or myself, or Luke or Diana or any of these other people, just ask and take advantage of that day of the spiritual light that is always magnified on these holidays, on these days. Go on Chabad.org and learn about Passover. They have everything imaginable there. It's not hard to find. All right, shalom, shalom.